Hi everyone, welcome back to another For Those Who Code video. This channel is where we discuss and learn new skills around the topic of design and development. If you want to grow your skills and learn new things that's coming up, please like, share, and please do subscribe for more. In this video, we'll be discussing how we can build a gaming website with Next.js. Next is a full stack React framework for production. We'll be using great features of Next and build a fully working gaming website. I know this will be fun. Here we have a lot of games which are freely available from free2game.com. So as you can see here in free2game, there are a lot of games that we can see. We can click on one game and then we can see a detail of that particular game here. So we'll not be quite replicating this, but we'll be consuming the endpoints provided to us by free2game through rapidapi.com. If you guys don't know what is rapidapi.com, it's a free marketplace where you can get access to all the endpoints and APIs that you need in your application. And inside here, we'll just search for a word called game, and you can see we'll be using this particular free-to-play games database, which is basically this website. And here we have a lot of endpoints that we can use here. So let's take a look at the website that we'll be building. So we'll be building pretty much basic website. So here we have list of games. As you can see, there are a lot of games, and here we can also search for any games that we want. For example, let's say Dota, and here we can see that Dota under logs and Dota 2. Let's go to under logs, and here we can see description of this particular game. All right, so let's go back, and we can go back to the home screen. This is a pretty much basic website that we'll be building with Next. And without any delay, let's get this started. So let's bring our terminal inside of VS Code here, and let's create a new Next project with the command npx create next app. And for the project name, we just want to be simply sticking with gaming next app. And during the process of installation, I'll take you to what are the endpoints that we'll be using through Rapid API. So Rapid API is just a marketplace where we can find APIs. For this simple demo application, we will be just consuming two APIs endpoint, which would be game list and return details from a specific game. But we won't be really using the other endpoints. Let's also take a look at our insomnia here, where I have already added two endpoints here and saved it. And inside first endpoint, we can see here, let's start with this get all games. So we are just adding the X rapid host, just following whatever we have here. We just need is two headers, and where I'll be like regenerating this API key later on. Just do things in the header and get endpoint, and we'll be good to go to receive all the games that we need. All right, and inside JSON, it's just a JSON and just headers with these three things, and also content type application JSON. And after sending the request, then it spits up with these data. As you can see, there are lots and lots and lots of games. All right, so what about just consuming one specific game? All right, so to consume one specific game, we have everything as the same, except we add a query there with an ID and give ID of 555 and send, and we can see here we get ID 455 and all the data we need. So these are pretty much two endpoints that we'll be using, and looks like our project has been already created. So let's navigate there. Looks like everything has been made ready for us. So before we begin, let's go to our pre-made site here, where we have already made whatever things we need. And let's plan out for the components. So regarding components that we'll be using for this simple application would be, first, it would be just a game component where we will have just one card there, and another component would be this search box, and another component would be everything that wraps in the container which could be called game list, and that's pretty much it. And obviously we need a dynamic route. If we click on any of these cards, we need to go to a specific ID and fetch the data from Rapid API. So that will be also be creating that dynamic route there. So let's go to our code. Let's close this one up and let's dive into our code. Let's start creating some folder structure first. Inside of our root here, let's create a components folder. And inside this components folder, I want to create a new folder and call it games. And inside component folder, let's create another folder and call it search box. Inside of games, let's create games.module.css, which is our CSS modules, and inside here let's create another which is index.js file. Okay, let's start with this particular file first. I want to import styles from the styles we created, games module.css, and let's also import link from next link. All right, now let's create a constant and call it games. For this game, we want to have our data here. So the games is basically the game card that we are dealing with. So inside of game card, we'll be using all games. So we can see here, we'll be using ID, title, thumbnail, genre, and description from here. So and I'll be leaving the rest. So inside here, let's add the data like ID, title, and let's create a div. So this div will have a class name, and let's give it styles.gameContainer. I won't be really diving into CSS styles for this video. We will just focus on functionality first. So inside that, I will add another div, and inside there, let's add a link, which should be this basic link that we added. So this should be from, and inside this link we want to have ref, and the ref would be just go to games and ID. So this is the game card that we are writing now, and as can be just the braces and backticks and games /$ and a dynamic value which is an ID. And inside here let's add furthermore cards. So inside of the anchor tag, let's add div, and inside that div let's add another div and have our image there. And image source can be the thing that we destructured here, which is thumbnail, and alt can be the name of the image, which can be the title itself. Let's add an h3 here, and h3 can be the title itself and also some description. And let's add another div, and inside there let's add a span, and inside there we will add the genre. So everything that has been destructured has been added to the template. Now ultimately we want to export default games. All right, it looks great. So after adding some of the styles here, let's move on to search box. So inside search box, let's create another index.js file, and also we want to add CSS modules here. So let's first import the styles, and let's create a constant and call it search box. And for the search box, we definitely want to destructure our props that's passed in. And inside here, let's add return. And inside that return, we'll add some JSX. We'll change this to React. And let's add a div of class name would be some styles dot search box. We'll add some basic styles from CSS modules here, and let's also add input tag. So it can be type of text, and we will pass down props inside here. And ultimately, let's export our search box. All right, this looks pretty much decent. So now let's move on to our adding next file here. So inside of our components, I will add another file and call it gamelist.js. So inside of game list, we first want to import the games that we created from this particular folder, which is .games. And let's export a default function, call it game list, and which takes filtered games as a prop destructured, and return some JSX here. So we want to add some fragment, and inside this fragment, let's receive this filter games, and you want to map this through because it's an array, and add games. We'll take one single game from there, and what do you want to do for that single game is, again, we want to return a div. So this div can receive a key, and that would be game.id, and inside here we want to access this particular game, which is one particular card, and that one particular card will receive some props. All right, so what are the props that the games receive is similar to what we have passed in here. So I will obviously copy this. Let's go to game list and paste it down here. These are generally the props that it will be receiving, and I will just add game.id, and title would be game.title, genre would be game.genre, thumbnail would be game.thumbnail, and lastly description would be game.sortDescription. All right, so after adding all the props and passing down, we have default function here, so we don't have to export it down here. So everything looks fine. Let's hit the save, and let's move to our next, which would be a layout. So basically this layout would act like a provider wrapper to our all the children inside of it. So layout.js. And inside here, we want to add a couple more of, let's first add a layout, which would take some children as a prop, and also let's give a title. Return here, and inside this return, we want to add a div. So inside this return, we want to add a div, and we have head. So the head is not imported. So head is just like importing our head tag from Next, and inside that head, let's add a title, and that title would be this title. So we haven't really added the title, so let's call it gaming site, and we haven't really used children yet as well. So let's add a link, which would be an icon, and we can add web icon dot ICO, which would be taken from the public favicon.ico here, which is a default favicon. And after adding head, let's go to header. So header would be just consist of a link, and which would be ref, and we will go to home route if we click on this particular thing, and this particular head would just have one image. So I will just grab image and also a paragraph. Yeah, so we just added an image. So this image is the image tag that's provided by Next, so we'll need to import it, and also added the src, which is the source of the image, and we will just import the source of the image as well. So after everything is done, let's go to main, and let's add our children here. Children would basically be anything that's that can be JSX HTML templates. So let's ultimately export default our layout. Yeah, this is basically it. So now let's move on to our next file, which would be index.js file. All right, so we already have made the use of head and image in the layout that we created here, which will act like a wrapping provider, and everything that comes inside would act as a children. So I'll just import everything from here except we have the CSS models, and let's import our things that we need first, which would be useState hook. We'll be using React useState hook, layout, and search box that we need to import here. And inside of our div container, let's grab everything, and let's add, also we need to add this game list here because we need to create the list of games over here. So before we begin, we want to wrap everything inside a layout, and everything that's inside this layout tag would act as a children, which is passed to this layout, which we created before. All right, so inside this layout, I will change this to React, and inside this layout, we want to add a div, and inside that div, we will add a search box. So, and this search box will receive some props that we created before, which is passed as a prop here. So So inside of here we can add type, which we can consider this as a prop that's passed in. Placeholder would be search your game, and also we need to add one last thing, which is onChange handler, and this onChange handler will invoke a function called handle change. All right, so after that's done, now another thing that we'll be needing is add a div here, and let's add a game card list here. So I will just add game list, and this game list will receive some props as we have added, and this would be filtered games is equal to filter games. So looks like we haven't really made the use of styles yet, so let's add styles here. This is CSS modules that comes out of Next, and after everything that has been added, now let's go to our creating some functions. The first function that we need is also handle change. So handle change function it takes event as a parameter, and we will just add event.prevent default here so that the page don't refresh it, and set I think we should be also adding some state here. So const search and set search, and after adding those two, we will add useState hook and keep this initially an empty string. So we can make the use of set search now and pass down our event.target.value, and also we want to add lowercase to this one, just in case someone types in capital letters inside of the search box. Now let's create another constant and call it filter games, and this filter games would basically take in filtered games, but we really haven't really created this filtered games. So for that we will need to create constant and call get server side props, which is just a server side rendering function that Next behind the scene will take some data before the page loads. So get server side props, which should be an async function, and this function we will just add our fetch endpoints here. Meanwhile, I will just also grab some environment variables because we need some environment variables inside here, and create .env.local right here, and we will bring some environment variables that we have right inside here. So so inside here we just want to make our call. For that we can obviously go to Node.js, or you can go to JavaScript and use a fetch. Basically this is it that we need. So we can just copy everything right here, or we can write some of our lines here. So let's create a constant and call it res, and let's wait for a fetch to happen. And inside this fetch we want to grab this particular link, which is that, and right here we want to add this particular link, and also we want to add some method would be get, and let's also add some headers we want, which should be taken from the process env rapid API host and rapid API key, as per we can see here, and I'll be changing that later on. So after adding these, now let's go to our next line and create a constant. Let's call it filtered games. So this filtered games will be the response.json, and we convert it to JSON and pass this particular filter games to return statement right here. So we can add props and return this particular filter games here. So after adding filter games here, we can receive that filter games inside of our home. So let's add filter games here, and that filter games can be accessed right here. All right, so what we want to do is filter the games, and we want to filter one specific game, and that can be game. And inside here we want to return game dot title dot to lowercase dot includes, if it includes search to lowercase, then we will filter that thing out. So this filter game can be now filter game here. Oh, sorry, filter games here. All right, so basically that is it. So we are passing the filter games that has been filtered through this thing right here, and we are setting it to lowercase and passing the filter games to our filtered games inside of game list. After adding this, let's hit a save, and everything looks fine to me. Now let's go ahead and check whether everything is working perfectly fine or not. So looks like we forgot something. So link is not defined. It's inside of layout.js. So let's go to layout.js, and inside here we haven't really imported our link. So let's import our link, which should be import link from next link. Hit a save, and looks like our data has been populated, which is great, right? So at least our data has been populated, but we have some styling fixes needed. If we hover on it, and we can see that our ID is being like reflected here. So now I will add some minor fixes to the styles later. Before that, where is our, all right, looks like the height, there was a height problem of 100 VH. Now I hope everything works fine. Let's add Dota, and it does work fine as expected. And let's go ahead and add some fixes to our search box, and when we click on this, it must take us to a different route, which is a dynamic route. Let's go ahead and add it now. All right, so to add a dynamic route here, we need to go to pages, and inside of pages we need to create a new folder and call it game. And inside this game folder, we can add these array brackets and call it id.js, so that we want to get this particular ID that's visited by the user. And also let's add a CSS module here and call it game.module.css. And inside this ID, we want to first import layout, the link, and the styles. And also we want to add, create a constant and call it game. And basically we want to pass down a game here, and this will return some JSX. Let's change this to React, and let's add layout here, which we imported on the top, And let's also close that layout. And inside this layout, let's add a div and also add link and slash close that link. Okay, so so this link has been imported up here. So this is a Next.js link, which takes in ref attribute, and it's just a home screen, and we can add another attribute of pass ref here. Ref. Okay, so inside this ref we can just add go back so that we can go back after visiting this route. And for now, let's add BR tags here so that we don't have to deal with stylings. And let's add div, and inside this div, let's add an image tag. So that image tag would consist of the image that's currently visited. So that can be accessed from the game.thumbnail, and the game is this game here. So and some alt attributes. So alt attributes can be just simply game.title, and let's also add h1 tag, and also we want to add some game platforms and game release date and description and other descriptions as well. So let's add everything that we need. So I've added all the data that we'll be consuming, and basically we can see it from this response here. So we're just getting few of the key value pairs from here. And if you're wondering this game, this would be generally it would be returned from get server side props. So before that one, let's export default our game here, and let's add export async function and get server side props, which will take in the context as parameter, and we can definitely destruct our ID that's visited from the context from context dot query. And also we want to add the fetch right here. So let's go ahead and grab the fetch that we need, and this is basically the same fetch that we see here inside of return details from a specific game, and this is basically this is it. And we also want to add the return from this function. So after adding fetch, let's add const data that would wait for the response to be turned into a JSON object, and later on return the prop and call it game, and we are accessing that game inside of our template right here. And all the data is just the particular game that we see here. All right, after adding everything here, everything looks fine. All right, it looks like stylings is also decent, and we have all the list of games here, and we can click on one game and it should lead us to this particular screen, which is fine for now. Now let's go back and we can see all the list of games. Now let's add a game name here. We can call it Warship. Yeah, here is World of Warships. All right, looks like we have achieved some basic functionality that we wanted in our this simple Next.js application. So in this video, we learned something and regarding how we can create a simple gaming site with Next.js. I hope you learned something new from this. So if you guys want to learn more around the topics of design and development, please like, share, and please do subscribe with the click down below. I'll be making more videos. Please support me, guys. Thanks a lot. See you in the next one.